I've got a drop cord for it.
For me, Eric, here I don't have a you can barely stand me playing with me because I'm just like going along, building all these fences and ways. I built this kind of ant-hill kind of thing with all the tubes and all. Inside the jungle. I didn't make one. I built water slides. They're fun, but my most recent thing is I hung it off the side of I hung it off the side of a mountain.
And I could have made more.
I built a little bit. Pre-revolutionary gun, and it's still taking characteristics. I don't like to copy anything, but to be in keeping with Dickard, taking characteristics of those three guns and using them on this.
Battalion! Take care! Shoulder! Hold up! Right about! Wait! Move!
What does that mean? It means they're going to load.
Battalion! Holy! Battalion! Holy! Battalion! Take ready! Take ready! Fire! My company! On the right! Hurry! My company! On the right!
These guns are very loud. We sit on fire.
I have to hold on to the railing because all of us fell over whatever.
My company! Got fire! Take ready! Take aim! Fire! Nowhere! Take ready! Take aim! Fire!
Dang.
Run along!
That would have done some real play. One guy survived.
Who's talking to you?
Take ready! Take aim!
Misfire.
Fire!
Where the whip?
Arm!
These weapons could have some funny misfires.
Take aim! Fire!
What the heck? No shot.
Water and gunpowder doesn't mix very well. Secure fire locks! I'm sorry, sir. That's right, it happens. I'm going to have remedial training later. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's our shooting demonstration. Feel free to move through the camps, get one-on-one with the soldiers, ask questions, and enjoy your time here in Cowpens while the sun is out and it's getting slightly warmer.
Demonstration here today is being done by members of the 3rd Continental Light Dragoons, demonstrating not only their namesake regiment in the white coat, but also the cavalry of the British Legion, their British counterparts in the green. These men decided the battle for General Morgan, gave him his victory. If it had not been for the cavalry's actions here at Cowpens, this may have ended very differently. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the 3rd PLE. That introduction. Ranger Gray said we are the 3rd Continental Light Dragoons. I'd like to start out by telling you a little bit more about the 3rd Dragoons, how they formed, how they came to be here. 3rd Dragoons were raised in Virginia. They were led by Colonel Baylor.
Walk. There you go. A little more impressive than 90. Well, first of all, return yours. A lot of them were around 13 hands, 13 twos. They were small. A lot of people were small too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just looking at the major part of the crowd. They've got them. Pick up and move up to work somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're still going to hear a big boom.
They told us before 12:30 y'all were splitting it up. Get you a little more centered in. Have a care. Up. Left. Peace. All right, stand at ease. All right, samest thing with the cannon or the gun, I suppose, is also the same thing we do with the howitzer as far as how many men it takes to shoot this particular weapon. I've got 4 guys on the main gun itself, 5 standing back with the powder magazine. The first 2 muzzle men are the ones that start the whole thing off. Our howitzer is basically the same thing as these small arms. It's a muzzle loader.
which basically means anything going out the barrel has to first go in the barrel. There's no breech loaders. We didn't have that until later on in the Civil War, which we're obviously doing a little earlier than that. The first gentleman is the wide hook. He has an implement that has a twist of metal in it. Makes it look like a corkscrew. Back then, what they would use to hold the powder would be a linen bag with the powder in it. They would run it down. It would be either attached to the ordnance or they'd run it down separately. Now, Newton's laws of physics, or how it goes, you got an equal and opposite reaction. Basically means you got a breech in the back, no exit. You got a breech and muzzle in the front, the way it goes out. Back of that cartridge is going to be pressed against the breech of the gun. It's not going to be able to come out. This right here is used to extract that piece of linen that's sitting in the back of your breech burning. You do not want to run a fresh powder charge on top of that. It tends to run your digits down and also gets rid of my artillerymen. They're too important to me and they take too long to train. So that's supposed to grab that piece of linen and bring it out. Now, it won't catch everything that's in the barrel. Some things are too small for it to hook onto. So the next gentleman has got the sponge rammer. He's down there on the end. He's got a piece of sheep's wool or some other kind of material as such on the end. Now it's damp. It's not soaking wet because black powder doesn't fire when it gets wet. In fact, humidity has an effect on the powder itself being unreliable. So what he does is he runs that down the barrel. Now, before he does that, the gentleman that's got a thumb stall on his hand, he's to pick and prime, that's one of the muzzlemen. Now what he does is, he puts that thumb over the back of the touch hole. Now that keeps the air from being fanned in there to keep the spark from being kept alive with the air passing over it. Now once he puts his thumb on that touch hole, he does not remove it until that round is seated, once again, to keep any air from being pushed around. Now, the guy with the sponge rammer, he runs it all the way down. He spins it a little while, makes sure that that catches anything in there and puts it out. Now, some of the cartridge can get caught up in the fibers of the sponge head, and it'll also extract it, which is perfectly acceptable and normal at times. Now, after he's run the sponge down and through, the round has to be introduced. It's brought up by another gentleman and introduced by the guy with the wide hook. But all he does is simply spin his implement around, and he has another thing on the end of it called the hammer staff, or the rammer staff on the other end. Now, this is what seats the projectile or the charge into the back of the gun. If it's not seated right, it won't fire right. And if we have a misfire in this particular weapon, that's a bomb we're looking at. It's not like a musket where, oh, I had a misfire, we can dump it out. I can't dump it out once I put that round down the tube. We have to go through a whole big elaborate thing of taking the round out of it. So we don't like misfires. So he has to make sure that that's well seated in the back. Now, once he's done his job, the gentleman that had the thumb stall on can finally take his thumb off. He's got a piece of wire that's called a vent pick. It's a non-ferrous metal, which basically means no iron. It's made of copper or brass. What it does is it doesn't cause a spark if it hits against another piece of metal. Any kind of spark can set off black powder, including static electricity. So you don't want anything that can cause a static charge to have it go off prematurely. Once he's introduced that down to the touch hole, it creates a void in the charge he just rammed down. Once he does that, he's got two options. He can either use a free pour cartridge, which looks like a musket cartridge these gentlemen have here, minus the cartridge, the musket ball, or he's got a quill primer, which is essentially a paper tube with powder in it. Once he introduces one of those down into the touch hole, the gun's ready to be fired. The next gentleman has an implement called a lens stop. Now, that's a piece of cotton cord, solid 100% cotton cord that's on there that's been treated with a chemical. And what that does is it holds a hot, slow-burning ember. This is the only way we can fire this particular weapon. They don't have a trigger, we don't have a flint that hits it and causes it to go off, and they didn't have lanyards, once again, until the Civil War, so we can't pull a string and have it go off that way. He has to physically touch the primer on the back of the gun. Now, it's also long enough to get him out of the way of the wheels of this particular gun. Recoil on this particular piece here can be anywhere from 6 to 9 feet, depending on the type of terrain and the size charge you're shooting it. And it doesn't care if you're in the way or not, it'll go right through you. The gentleman last but not least is the guy in the middle. He holds the powder magazine. He's also called the powder monkey. That comes back from the naval engagements where they had kids that would actually ferry the powder and ordnance to the guns and the ships. The way they walked, going over the stuff in there and hunched over, resemble monkeys that kind of stuck with them. But he's our powder handler. He makes sure that the rounds are brought up at the right time, the correct speed. He also makes sure that the commander knows that he only has so many rounds left. That pretty much does it for everybody there. You got something to say, yes, sir?
Yep. How you want to do this? You want to do artillery first?
She only gonna let her shoot once, or she wants to stay quiet. Ms. Margo.
The howitzer gun.
Alright.
Alright. As soon as we get ready to load, we're going to do one quick dry run without a round. Like I said, that gets us into a rhythm of things. And then once we do that, the next time will be a live round. If you have hearing aids, you might want to turn them down. If you have children or pets that don't like loud noises, you might want to take control of them at that time.
Time rehearsal of the gun. Not yet.
This is going to be live.
Live shot.
Give. Fire. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the howitzer firing. At this point in time, the first howitzer is going to take the field. They're going to be firing their swivel gun. Afterwards, we're going to let small arms come in there and do their thing as well. Appreciate y'all coming out. Any other questions or anything, please feel free after the demo to come forward and ask. That's what we're here for. Thank you for coming out.
That is a nice little bike path, walk path.
Pedestrian area.
Yes.
So we're driving around Cowpens National Battlefield. This is a road that surrounds the outside of the park. Well, the outside perimeter of the park. Thank you.
Campers.
Picnic area.